On this channel, I've always been about finding the best camera for you. And the Canon EOS R might be it, but I think you have to be in a pretty narrow category for that to apply. This video is brought to you by Squarespace. Save 10% off your first order by going to squarespace.com/photorectv. We're going to get to the bigger Canon issue in just a minute, but first some thoughts after using the Canon EOS R for a full 6 weeks. It's actually 6.5. I sent it back a little late. That included the Canon launch event in Hawaii. Then I went to Iceland with several weeks there, then the desert Southwest, and well, that all totaled up to be about several thousand photos, a handful of time lapses, and lots of video, 4K and 1080. Now, I'm a hybrid shooter, and my thoughts on this camera are based on that user scenario. I'm capturing both photos and videos while I'm traveling. So I want to talk about the video first, and right off the bat, 4K with a serious crop, 1.7 times. That actually makes hybrid shooting pretty difficult. You frame up your photo composition, take a few pictures, and then you switch to video, and suddenly you have a very different view. And before you tell me that you've got no interest in 4K, let me share why I shoot in 4K. And it's the same reason I shoot in the largest available resolution in my camera for photos. It gives me flexibility after the fact. I can either publish out beautiful 4K footage, or I can crop in to get a little bit more zoom, or I can shift around and change my composition. That's all. I mean, I know this doesn't apply to everyone, but if you shoot video, there are several choices at or below the Canon EOS R price point that does so without a crop and offers better features and better quality often. You also have no in-body image stabilization, and based on interviews and info Canon has released, it doesn't seem like any of this is going to change. They're not going to magically add in-body image stabilization. I mean, there is an electronic stabilization in there now. We could see some updates to it. It's not great now. It does not seem like we're going to see any change to this crop. I mean, there were some rumors of firmware updates. I thought it sounded like something was right around the corner that would fix some of these issues, but based on more recent information and interviews, I don't see this being very likely, and that's more typical of Canon. Their firmware updates are usually just bug fixes or phenomenon fixes, with a few rare historic exceptions. 7D, I'm looking at you. Now, the lack of in-body image stabilization isn't huge. I mean, after all, Canon has some of the best stabilized lenses. But it does mean you need to use those lenses, and when you compare it to Sony and Nikon full-frame mirrorless, you can use any lens, and having that lens be stabilized from anything from a small little prime to a longer telephoto, that just gives you some additional flexibility. But you might say, or I'll say to you, it's got C-Log, it's got Canon colors, and it's got 10-bit 422 out over HDMI, and dual pixel autofocus for video with a fully flip-out touchscreen. That's true, and that's all good. But then I watched Max's video where he carefully compared the footage from all of these cameras, Canon, Sony, Fuji, Nikon, and that Canon footage is just not that sharp. And that dual pixel autofocus that I've loved for years, it's so smooth and cinematic, it's so easy to use, it now seems to struggle a bit when you compare it to some of the competition. So back to anyone that cares about video at all, there are better options out there at or below this price point. Though if you're firmly in the world of Canon video and you're looking for a B camera to match higher end gear, this could be an easy choice. I do want to take a second and thank Squarespace for their sponsorship of this video. If you don't have a place to display your photos and videos that is your own, consider Squarespace. Those social media places, they don't count. They make it ridiculously simple, from buying a domain to setting up a beautiful website that is yours, that you control. No more apologizing on social media for the cropping of your image and the way they compress it to cat crap quality. That's the official term. Nope, Squarespace is a place where you can easily build with their drag and drop interface, and if you do happen to get stuck, they offer 24/7 tech support. It all works so very nicely. Why don't you make 2019 the year you make your mom proud and display all of your beautiful work on a beautiful website that is yours? Save 10% off your first purchase at squarespace.com/photorectv. Thank you, Squarespace, for your support. All right, let's move on. Let's stop talking about video because many of you could care less. How does it do photographically? Well, I started with Canon and I mostly enjoyed using this camera for general photography. It feels nice in the hand, and as I said, I came from a Canon user. It feels comfortable, just beyond the hand holding. It actually feels like a friendly old friend. And then the image quality, it's quite good. Though if you really try to raise the shadows, you start to see more noise than you might from a Sony or Nikon with their newer, nicer sensors. But it's only when you really start to push or pull the file. Single point autofocus is good. Moving that point around using the screen and that touchpad, that worked really well for me. Except sometimes I'd put it away, fold the screen against the body, screen side in, and then as I bring it up to my eye to use, I realize that the screen's not accessible. Have to take it away, flip the screen out, back. It's kind of a process. You say, why not use the pad on the back? It's slow. It's small, slow, and a bit awkward. I would love to see them bring back a focus point joystick. Now, continuous autofocus doesn't impress me. It seems, honestly, that anything slower than a fast walk, anything faster than a fast walk, it struggles to keep up. And you combine that with the slower frames per second this camera provides, and it's not something I would be excited about using for my kid's soccer match or a safari or anything with possible faster action. It could certainly be used. But again, there are better options at or below this price point. Price isn't everything though. But that multifunction swipe bar, I already talked about it in another video. It's frustrating. After 6 weeks of use, I still feel the same. It's just not well thought out. I tried it again and again, and I found it also to be a bit buggy when used with auto ISO. The only people I have heard from that can convince me that that swipe bar is useful are those that are switching between two white balance settings quickly. Otherwise, it just feels a bit fiddly and frustrating. Then there's the lack of dual card slots. It's an issue. I'm sorry, it is. Since this camera was announced, the number of people that have shared horror stories of losing images, either as a glitch in the camera or an SD card or a screw up on their own part. It's been significant enough that again at this price point, it really should have 2 slots. And some of you have suggested that Wi-Fi backups of JPEGs is a solution, which that camera does allow. It's a battery draining solution, and it's not one that I would like to rely upon. Now, I did use a handful of Canon and Sigma lenses over the last 6 weeks in the field with the RF adapter, and it works really well. It's incredibly smooth, certainly better than any other system with adapters, and lens-wise, that Canon 24-105 is a great lens. Really solid all around, a nice complement to the EOS R. And that 51-2, oh, that's a lovely lens. Really nice, great quality, fun to shoot with. I'd like to see some smaller, lighter lenses that are a little bit more affordable and pair nicely with the smaller, lighter EOS R body. I mean, that 28-70 f2, it's an amazing lens, an amazing engineering feat. But it's £3 and $3,000. It doesn't feel like it should be paired with this mirrorless camera. It's a little strange to me that they were all released together. I do think the rumors are true. We'll see a much higher pro-level camera soon, or at least I think we should. So who knows, because Canon doesn't listen to me. So when we take a look at the big picture, hybrid shooters are out, people shooting action or anything faster is out. Video? It leaves a pretty narrow market, and I struggle to really recommend this camera to anyone other than Canon photographers that are really excited about having a full-frame Canon mirrorless option right now. I'm not saying this is a bad camera. I just don't think it competes very well against the competition and doesn't offer enough to switch from another system, and honestly doesn't offer a strong enough value at the moment to upgrade from current Canon cameras. And as I teased at the beginning of this, the bigger long-term issue I see here, and don't get me wrong, I don't think Canon is going out of business anytime soon, but they now have a much more fragmented mount system. I wonder how many photographers started off with a crop sensor body, a Rebel or a 60 or 70D, and then started collecting a full-frame lens or two, and then made the upgrade to a Canon full-frame camera. That's how I started. And now with the mirrorless EOS R system, with that RF mount, we don't have a path for that. And we have a crop sensor mirrorless from Canon, but that's the EOS M and the M mount. And there isn't a way to use those lenses, or more importantly, RF lenses on those bodies. Granted, this is a transition period and it's going to be a bit rough as we kind of transition to a completely new mount, but right now Canon is saying that this is going to exist alongside their DSLRs, so it's a bit messy. And so there's just nothing that is so compelling about this camera that I think you need to jump on the bandwagon right now. What do you think? I want to hear your opinions and your thoughts. Many of you were interested in hearing my follow-up, so that's what this video was. Now I want to hear yours. Have you had a chance to have your hands on this camera? Have you had a chance to kind of digest other reviewers? I'd love to know. Leave those comments right down below. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. I've got lots more videos, tips, tricks, travel videos coming. And that thumbs up if you appreciated this video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.